the hour is coming.
The coming darkness was too deep for us to grasp.
And in this case, it was essentially the desecration of the temple by the people who are supposed to uphold as models of righteousness and faithfulness to God. The fall was a mockery. People were using the temples for extortion, basically, and defiled, as Jesus wanted the temple.
In recent times, the persecution of Christians has reached an unbearable level. It's no longer limited to threats and intimidation. Innocent lives are being slaughtered simply for their faith. Children poisoned, churches burned, and families torn apart over Christianity. And this tragedy in the United States has left believers speechless. Something is deeply wrong, not just in politics or the news, but in the soul of a nation. What if I told you Jesus is upset, not in rage, not in hatred, but in heartbreak, disappointment, a righteous sorrow that pierces deeper than any headline ever could?
You were there, waiting. Because the darkness is not dark to you. At least, not always. The coming darkness was too deep for us to grasp.
And if you've been watching The Chosen, especially this latest season, then you know we were warned. Jonathan Roumie warned us, not with loud words, but with a quiet warning hidden in plain sight. And now, it's unfolding before our eyes.
Are in the red. I told you to make life difficult for the followers of Jesus.
It is on this rock that I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it.
Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem.
You can run on for a long time.
My house shall be called a house of prayer, but you make it a den of thieves.
In The Chosen, there's a moment where Jesus enters Jerusalem, not as a warrior, but as a savior. People are cheering him, welcoming him, but just days later, those same voices turn on him. Jonathan Roumie's portrayal is more than just acting. It's a mirror of today's world. The sorrow in his eyes, the heartbreak in his voice, it's as if Jesus is watching us now.
Now that I'm here, physical death does not interrupt our eternal life.
Lazarus, come out!
In the past few days, America has seen storms, spiritual confusion, division, fear, from mysterious skies to cultural chaos. People are asking, where is God in all this? What if the question we should be asking is, what is he trying to say? And more importantly, are we even listening?
Authorities have said was in attendance at the school before opening fire and was found dead at the scene, while two of these victims who lost their lives were already dead when the authorities arrived at the spot.
You know, we had heard some gunshots. We had also heard our door attempted to be opened.
Wrapped around one another, Florida State University students gather on campus, laying flowers, balloons, and candles near the student union where a gunman opened fire on campus, killing 2 people and injuring.
Jesus wept over Jerusalem, not because of politics, not because of enemies, but because his people didn't recognize the time of their visitation. Could the same be happening today? In America, in our cities, even in our homes? We claim to follow him, but have we traded his truth for comfort? Jesus is upset, not in rage, but in sorrow, because we're drifting, distracted, and asleep.
Things. My own.
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
We have a problem. Jesus operates entirely outside our jurisdiction.
Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees!
In one of his recent interviews, Roumie emphasizes that Jesus' anger was directed at the hypocrisy and exploitation within religious institutions. These sentiments echo the frustrations many feel today. The parallels between the injustices of the past and present are striking. Roumie's portrayal serves as a mirror, prompting introspection about our society's moral compass.
Humanity that we've never seen yet thus far, and that I don't think anybody's quite captured on film in any kind of retelling of the story in this way, especially in the first 4 seasons of build up to the ultimate sacrifice Jesus made on behalf of humanity.
Yeah. So you kind of mentioned some of these different aspects of Jesus, or the different parts of his personality and character that are going to come out in this season. And we've seen already from some of the things that have been released, a little bit of teasers here and there. We've seen the poster of Jesus going into the temple with the whip. Right. And I know that in John chapter 2, it actually says that Jesus made the whip. So this wasn't just a spontaneous thing where he saw a whip and he just started going crazy.
Yeah,
but there was a
whip shop
purpose
that
for it.
Went into or anything like that, or a whip vendor.
Yeah.
And he didn't buy it on first century eBay. He made a whip out of cords.
Yeah.
And basically we sort of know how it goes, and people will get to actually see exactly our version of how that went. And it is something to behold. How they wrote the story, how they wrote those scenes was just beautiful and powerful and emotional. Yeah. And I think really it's kind of what this has been, the last 4 seasons has been building to.
Recently, a Christian student at a university was tragically murdered in an act rooted in racial hatred. This heinous crime has sent shockwaves through the Christian community, highlighting the deep-seated issues of racism and violence that persist in our society. As believers, we must confront these injustices head-on, reflecting on our role in fostering a more compassionate and equitable world. In a recent interview on The View, when asked about why we see Jesus angry in this season, Roumie answered with piercing clarity. When Sonny Hostin asked him about Jesus' anger, he didn't hesitate.
Often when we think of Jesus, we think of his peacefulness, right? The Prince of Peace. This season, we see another side of him, though. We see what I'd like to call righteous anger. Can you talk about what brings him to that place?
So let's talk about where the message hit different. He emphasizes over hypocrisy within the temple establishment of his time, seeing religious leaders subvert the meaning behind the practices of faith and extort the poorest of the poor.
Yeah, hypocrisy. Hypocrisy within the church establishment, the temple establishment of his time.
This wasn't anger out of ego. It was righteous anger, the kind that sees injustice and cannot stay silent. He described Jesus flipping tables in the temple, not just as a scene of outrage, but as an act of resetting what had gone wrong in God's house.
Right. So we know that obviously Jesus didn't ever sin. And so what he did was not a sinful thing, but actually the Bible talks about be angry, but not sin. So this was a righteous anger.
And here's the twist. It's not just a story from 2,000 years ago. Look around. We see corruption in high places, spiritual manipulation, people profiting off religion, off suffering, off fear. We see churches filled with politics, but empty of love. Morality traded for popularity, justice twisted by power.
Jesus didn't experience the kinds of anger to the fault of sinfulness that we as humans do, right? So, what does that mean? Well, you have to consider what is generating the anger, and in this case, it was essentially the desecration of the temple by the people who are supposed to uphold as models of righteousness and faithfulness to God the Father, what temple worship should look like. And at that point, it was a mockery. People were using the temples for extortion, basically. And I think Jesus, through the eyes and lens of God, basically hit his limit, and he couldn't take anymore, and he needed to quite literally clean house.
And then we wonder why our nation feels spiritually hollow. Jonathan Roumie said it best in that same The View interview. Jesus set a really high bar, and it's not easy to follow in his sandal steps. but I try.
It's not easy to follow in his footsteps or his sandal steps. But I try my best, and I try to be present with people when I encounter them on the streets, and even if it's at an inconvenient time or you know, they're asking something of me and want me to.
It's this bar, this standard, that's being forgotten. And maybe, just maybe, Jesus is still flipping tables today. Not in a temple of stone, but in the temples of hearts that have grown cold, proud, distracted. The message in The Chosen isn't just cinematic. It's spiritual. It's a mirror. Roumie plays a Jesus who is loving, gentle, yes, but also deeply moved by the injustice done in God's name. He doesn't stay silent when the poor are trampled. He doesn't look away when faith is twisted into control.
The sacrifices that and the worship that should be going on in the temple are all for God. And when you have the corruption of humanity inhabiting the temple, the first thing he needed to do was just cleanse it. He just needed to get rid of it. And so it's from that place that he's acting.
And now, here in America, we're watching eerily similar patterns play out. Isn't it chilling? We love the peaceful Jesus, the safe Jesus, the Jesus who hugs children and calms storms. But what about the Jesus who confronts sin? The one who calls out religious hypocrisy? The one who makes even believers uncomfortable? That's the Jesus we need to reckon with right now. Roumie's portrayal in The Chosen forces us to confront this version. Not the one we prefer, but the one who really lived. And this isn't just a show. Something is happening. In our culture, in our churches, in our hearts. And it feels like a storm is coming.
Undefiled, as Jesus wanted the temple undefiled, to make the temple of our own bodies, my own body, as undefiled as it ought to be for when entering into worship for God. So,
Roumie, in various interviews, has shed light on the depth and significance of this portrayal. In an interview with the Washington Examiner, he elaborated on the reasons behind Jesus' anger. Seeing religious leaders basically subvert the meaning behind and the practices of his faith at the time and extort the poorest of the poor during the holidays. That was the last straw for him, and so he wanted to basically reset the temple. Further emphasizing the emotional weight of this portrayal, Roumie shared in an interview with the Joy FM. It was one of the most physically and emotionally taxing scenes I've ever done, but it was necessary to show that Jesus wasn't passive in the face of injustice. This commitment to authenticity underscores the importance of representing the multifaceted nature of Jesus, compassionate yet just, gentle yet firm. Moreover, Roumie's dedication to the role extends beyond the screen. In a conversation with Movie Guide, he reflected on how portraying Jesus has influenced his personal faith journey. It's changed my relationship with God and that it has deepened profoundly and made me want to be more like Jesus in my day-to-day life, and not just to play him. This transformation highlights the profound impact that embodying such a pivotal figure can have on an individual's spiritual growth. In another insightful discussion on The Tucker Carlson Show, Roumie delved into the challenges and responsibilities of playing Jesus. The weight of playing Jesus is immense. It's not just about delivering lines. It's about embodying a message, a purpose, and a love that transcends time.
Stop the production for a moment to talk to the director, to Dallas Jenkins, and I said, "Can we just slow down a second?" And he said, "What's going on?" And so I took him aside. I said, "Listen, man, I'm having a hard time right now. Like, I was starting to feel panicked and overwhelmed, almost like I've only had one panic attack in my life, and it started to feel like it was creeping into that, and I didn't know why, or how. Well, I kind of knew. I thought I knew why, and what was going on. But I just said, hey, can we slow it down?" And he said, "What's going on?" And I said, "I'm saying these words, and hearing myself say them, I don't feel worthy to be saying them."
These reflections offer a glimpse into the profound responsibility Roumie feels in portraying a figure as significant as Jesus, ensuring that the representation is both respectful and impactful. Roumie continues in another interview. It was a system designed to spiritually trap people, and Jesus couldn't stay silent anymore.
Have somebody to relate to as we're going through these trials ourselves.
Did you have any apprehension about showing a version of Jesus that isn't one that's typically shown?
I didn't, because I think he has to feel human. If he doesn't feel human, most people won't relate to him. I mean, granted, there might be scenarios from time to time where I've shared this with Dallas, where he and I may not have exactly alignment on well, I feel like if he says it like this, it's just a little too casual,
Yeah.
And he then may come back to me and say, yeah, but here's why. And then he goes through it. I'm like, okay, I get that.
I'm just in my head, I was thinking of that sort of cliche of an actor saying, oh, what's my motivation? In your case, the answer was, you got to bring about the salvation of the world. Play it like that.
Saving souls. I got to save more souls.
And so the decision was made that you were going to do The Chosen. Before that, maybe scuffling is too strong of a word, but you were just sort of a jobbing actor.
Struggle busing.
Struggle busing. How does it happen that a struggle busing actor makes it big playing Jesus?
I think that the path to that is absolute and uncompromising surrendering to a higher power.
And the message isn't just on screen, it's internal. Because playing this role has changed him. He states portraying Jesus has made him confront his own pride, his own comfort, and made him realize
blasphemy and the sacrilege that was occurring within the temple walls, perpetrated by those who are meant to protect the temple and to sanctify and to keep the temple holy. Basically, they were defiling or allowing the defilement of the temple and still claiming to be religious leaders. And that was the ultimate hypocrisy for Christ.
Yeah. It just seems like it's been such an incredible journey. Being with this character, and obviously a very important character, for 5 years. How has the experience changed you?
Yet, amidst the turmoil, there are glimmers of hope. Communities coming together, individuals standing up for justice, and a collective yearning for genuine faith and compassion.
Well, in reality, it's been 7 years.
Oh my goodness.
So 5 seasons in 7 years. So I've had a lot of time to spend with this character, and then even going back 4 years before with Dallas Jenkins in short films, playing this character. So he's somebody I've been living with as almost as an alter ego, so to speak, and I use that very, very lightly, for almost a decade at this point, or actually more than a decade.
Incredible.
So I feel very, very protective of him as a character, as a God to me personally, as a Catholic Christian. He's essentially the most important priority in my life. So every season
As we navigate these challenging times, perhaps Roumie's portrayal of Jesus offers more than entertainment. It offers a call to action, a reminder to confront hypocrisy, to champion the marginalized, and to embody the principles of love and justice. As we reflect on these insights, it's evident that The Chosen serves as more than just a retelling of biblical events. It acts as a mirror, prompting viewers to examine their own lives, beliefs, and actions. The depiction of Jesus' righteous anger isn't merely a historical recount. It's a call to action, a reminder to stand against injustice, to uphold the sanctity of faith, and to embody the principles of compassion and righteousness in our daily lives.